All right, let's do this. I'm Nato Thompson, the Artistic Director of Creative Time. So glad to be in DC. First of all, I got little notes here. Let's give it up to Pookie, Juju, and Satali. Oh yeah. Thanks guys. We're gonna be spending some time together. This is like a full day of jamming. So that's right. So we're gonna, yeah, exactly. We've got the jams together. So this is the Creative Time Summit. It's so great to be in DC. I want to put a little context out there, but also just to say something about Creative Time itself. We're a public arts organization, as many of you may know, but we're, I think more than that, some things I know about public art is public art, like social justice, is a team sport, and we've got a great team. And we just put on this incredible project out in Brooklyn that's going right now, this insane haunted house by Pedro Reyes called Democracy, a haunted house of political nightmares. Sound familiar? Yeah, that's your life. Yeah. Wake me up. I get you. But in general, we do projects in the public sphere following artists' dreams that resonate deeply. You don't need to know about art to enjoy them because the good artists just speak to the space that is your life, the thinking, breathing, emotive space that is you, in the complex arena that is our world. We are here in DC. It's not an accident that this is timed with the US elections, but I want to be particular about that. It's hard in this particular, I think every election's like this. This one particularly feels hysteric and insane. But, as a cautionary tale, do you ever find yourself trying to resist reacting to the next insane news story? And you just feel like every one of your conversations, as much as you resist, is about Donald Trump? And you feel like somehow you're in the Trump vortex, right? Like clearly every newspaper is for the last year and a half. But there's more going on than reacting to Trump, as we know. And I think there's more going on with the question of social justice than reacting to Trump. And I say that because as much as this is timed with the elections, and certainly it's on all our minds, because of course there is a misogynist, racist, fascist running for president, so certainly that would be on our minds. But that said, it's not also like, yay, US elections, at least the summit, because in many ways, the summit takes its cues, and has always, from the grassroots movements, not only in the US, but around the world. That's where the conversation for us is. And so as much as we're in the same city as US government, this is a space to think through the grassroots movements that are not only challenging the conditions of power, but are also taking a different kind of historic approach to the questions that motivate us. This is also, DC, not just the city of elections and government, but a city with go-go music that I think some of us heard last night. A city that famously invented, and I know that Ian MacKay is going to be presenting today, and I'll try not to be some weird groupie. But a city of DC hardcore, a scene that I think speaks volumes to the kind of interesting and important approach that a lot of socially engaged art is taking in the world, which is DC hardcore basically said it's not just about the music, it's about the means of production, that one should own their records, one should own their record label, one should think about the venues they're in. Just to say one should think about the infrastructure and the labor and human resources that go into the production of art. And I think that's the radical proposition that is always on our minds. It's not just what is said, it's under the context, who, what for. And that's definitely going to be here today. I have to give another shout out to Don Russell at Provisions and Victoria Reese and her crew at Transformer. Thank you for being great partners. So shout out to the local in DC. And I also think in general, you gotta be local. But you can't also just be local, you have to be international. You go to anything that's only one or the other and you start rolling your eyes. It's also the 100th anniversary of DADA. I'm sure it's on your calendar. But it is not unrelated to what we are up to today because, of course, DADA came in a reaction to the horrors of World War I, the refutation of the idea of rationality because, of course, they said, if that is rational, that which produced World War I, then I don't want any piece of your rationality. And it made art, and it made this kind of absurdist, dreamy art. And sometimes at these art and politics conferences, you just are always making useful art, or instrumental art, or activist art. But we must produce space for dreamy, impossible, weird art. Right? We have the right to be strange. And Hans Ulrich will speak much more to this later today. Oh my God, my time's running low and I have to be diligent. But I have to say this too. The historic moment we're in, we have done this summit for 8 years now. And in 2011, it's very, very sharp in my mind, it coincided with the very first few days of Occupy Wall Street. And that was an amazing year. 2010 was the birth of Arab Spring. 2011 saw the birth of what was called the European Summer. And then Occupy Wall Street happened. And I think through that lens, just through grassroots movements, the current iterations of the globe in certain regions makes a lot more sense. I don't think you could have Bernie Sanders mentioning socialism without Occupy Wall Street. I don't think the issue of class, the way it's directly on the table, would be mentioned without Occupy Wall Street. I don't think you would have the conditions that are happening in Greece, the Grexit, if you will, without the European summer and the challenge to the European Union and its neoliberal order. It also has its peculiar iterations because there's Brexit and all this. But certainly social movements have, over the last 5 years, directly challenged and shaped the narratives. And then, of course, as much as there is an insane hangover and difficulty wrestling with the outcomes of the Arab Spring, certainly the dreams of the Arab Spring are hugely important. And in fact, it's important to always wrestle with the outcomes of that. Certainly the U.S. currently has a Cold War proxy war in Syria, which is a devastating human loss that came out of the dreams of civic participation. So there's much to be discussed, but social movements have shaped a lot. Oh gosh, I gotta, yep. We have at this summit also Alicia Garza, one of the co-founders of Black Lives Matter. To say that Black Lives Matter has shaped the narrative is almost ridiculous to say. Of course it has. And it is somewhat obviously a tragic movement in so much as it's always having to react to the violence against our Black Americans in this country. And that's horrible. But it is not new. What is new is a coordinated, queer, radical, strategic resistance in cities across America. And I find it deeply empowering, and I'm so glad to have Alicia here to speak to that as we hold this summit. It's an honor. Our first section is called Occupy Power. And my next note, it's not new to the Creative Times Summit that some speakers cannot make it due to political realities. Haneen Zoabi, who was the first Arab woman elected to parliament in the Knesset in Israel, in 2009, and currently serving, couldn't be here because her political party is under investigation, and that is not surprising, but she has pressing political matters to attend to back home. But the question of Occupy Power is about how do the grassroots movements actually take power? And I don't mean like wrestle it, but what are the complexities of dealing with power? How can we not just resist, but redistribute social justice? How do we not only change the narrative, but actually redistribute the narrative in a powerful and important way? Because I feel like as much as it feels like there's a fascist neoliberal reckoning, I also see a profound social movement getting closer to that which is power. And I hope we can wrestle with that as we sit here today. Because Haneen Zoabi could not be here, we have Leila Al-Shair, a student at George Mason University with a major in School of Conflict Analysis and Resolution and with a minor in Art and Social Change, here to speak on her behalf, reading a statement. Thank you for being here, and let's warmly welcome Layla Al-Shair.